Well, I get asked the question a lot of what we can do, and what I find with so many people is that it's an astonishing sense of being disempowered. Like, it's some big they that is creating the future, and people don't seem to have a hand in creating their own. And so, it just keeps coming up for me. What do I say to people like that? And I don't think I have an easy answer to that question of how do we create a sense of empowerment and sense that we can both do it ourselves in our own lives, but also how we can come together in doing that. Part of the answer for me is, of course, how powerful we ourselves feel in our lives, in general, about anything. Are you directing where your life is going, or are you just going to your 9-to-5 job and whatever? So to what extent do you feel creative in your own life? And I think that's an interesting question to explore for people, and not so much for me to tell them how to be that, but to become aware of the places in which they do feel powerful and in places they feel like they're just suffering through it. Or having to bear it, or just having to take whatever comes. But one part of the answer of how we create a sense of we can create a future is learning more about how change happens. When I give talks, I get asked about climate change, and I say, here's how that happens, and it takes about 2 minutes, and then of course, there's endless things to say, but I spend very short amount of time on that, and instead spend time on behavior change. What do we know about that? How do social movements happen or grow and get built? What can we say to people about how policy change in the United States has ever happened? It never starts in Washington. So, just to explain to people what we know from history, what we know from psychology, what we know from sociology, from political science, and then to help them see their role within that, whatever piece they want to play with that. Some people don't want to be going out in the streets and holding up big signs and whatever, but they might be willing to be at a community meeting. They might be willing to host a gathering at their home, to have a conversation with their neighbors, or to start a petition, or whatever the case may be. So, you have to kind of find out what people love to do, but then to help them see how that piece of action could fit into the larger picture. I think the biggest problem we have is that we don't see how our action fits in with the bigger picture of what everybody else might be doing. So in my talks, I give a sense of the collective by telling story of what others are doing and how that adds up. Having kinds of statistics that, okay, if everyone changed a light bulb, that would result in we can turn off 2 power plants or something of that nature. So just to help people see that individual actions fit into a bigger effort, and that other people are actually doing that. So those are a couple of the places where I begin, embedded in the question you asked of how do we create a sense of empowerment to create the future we want, is to actually ask, what is the future you want? Most people never get asked that question, and it's hard for them to articulate, but before too long, in a dialogue with their friends, with their family, people are quite capable of saying how they want government to improve, how they might want to live, what kind of community, what they want to eat, where they want to go to work, how they get there. So it's all kinds of elements like that you can use to create a picture. And then once we have that vision of a future, then to create the path together and show how everyone's actions contribute to moving forward. Celebrating when we get a little bit down the road and a little bit further down the road. Having plans for the setbacks when things don't go as well as we thought it or hoped it would go. Those are really important pieces, and it takes a long time to get to the future you want. So to have people tap into the highest aspirations they have for themselves, I think is another way to truly tap into an enduring source from which we can draw. I think there are some fairly despairing people who, have basically made up their mind. It's all, we're all screwed, we're going to hell in a handbasket. But the larger number of people that I encounter anyway would rather have hope, would rather have a way forward. I mean, life is over if you just feel like we're all cooked and there's nothing else to do. So most people actually are, would love to see a way they can contribute. They would love to see other people helping. They would love to have a plan of how we get there. They would love to have a vision of something, not just doom and gloom, but something that is actually worth fighting for, worth working toward, worth putting all your energy into. And I believe that's true, I think, across anybody I've come across. People have they have a desire to be good. I haven't spoken to a mass murderer, so I don't know. But, for the people I talk to, they truly want to be good people. And so when you can find out what is that one thing that just makes them get passionate and gets them out of bed, or pulls them out of a depression, then you can really find fire to put under this. My greatest fear with climate change is that we're going to encounter increasingly crises, catastrophes, another disaster here, another disaster there. And it gets hotter and we lose more food and species and all the rest of it. And out of desperation, essentially, we will try to just throw every technology at it, maybe do geoengineering or whatever, do market incentive programs, and just use these existing ideas that give us this superficial hope for quick fixes. Oh, let's just, take care of it. Really, somebody with the big technology, please fix it, Change all the cars, change all the power plants, which, in true reality is actually profoundly challenging to do. Which is why we're having the trouble in the first place. But people will want the solution to come through those kinds of somebody else, the experts, the policymakers, the corporate, whatever, CEOs. Someone take it on and fix it for me. It's just, how I think we're put together, and maybe, I don't know, in our state of maturity, I think this is kind of where we're looking for the answers. And what we might forget in all of this is that there is deeper work to be done. Because what drives a market system that is all about profit and greed and consumption? What drives something that is all about bigger technology and, controlling everything? What drives that? It's our deepest values. It's our beliefs about how the world works. And if we do not address that, they will drive whatever the next solution is. They will just be taken and applied to the so-called solution. And I just don't think that is deep enough. So how do we create that? Well, for one thing, by simply insisting that, in addition to all the outer work we have to do, all the innovations we have to create, all the new technologies that we have to put in place for the old ones, the dirty ones, we have to insist in public, not just in our private conversations, in public spaces, that there is deeper work to be done. We have to question what are the beliefs behind that? Is it really what we're after? To just keep wanting to grow, progress, no stopping of anything. It's always upward. Or do we maybe need to get grounded in the realities of limits? And what does that mean? And how did we get here anyway? Deeper reflective questions. So any one of us can bring that conversation to the table, and we need to do that, or else we will just transplant the problem to something else. I mean, we've created ourselves one of the biggest problems humanity has ever had. So maybe it's time we actually started to think about those deeper issues. I think it's a fabulous notion to think that we're not victims of climate change. We have an opportunity. It is just perfectly made for us to grow up as a culture. Yes, I am not in the business of sort of nice talking the fact that there are people who are very much drawing the shorter stick here, who have no responsibility for creating this global problem and who are suffering more than the rest of us who have. That injustice needs to be named as it is. But if we only think of it, oh, we poor, humans, now something terrible is going to happen to us, then we will be in a defensive posture. We will be in a place of just having to fix it and get rid of it, and then that's, or else maybe just die from it or whatever our posture might be. But if we think of it as this has been tailor-made for the human species to confront deeper issues, and this is the perfect opportunity, maybe the last opportunity if we don't take it, to question more fundamentally of how come some of us are privileged to have, had economic growth and incredible wealth and incredible luxuries, while we did that on the backs of nature and other people. I mean, that is some of the deeper work that we need to do. And if we engaged it, not from a victim place, but from a, from a place of reckoning, showing up for a big reckoning, that to me would indicate that we're taking steps in the right direction. We can grow from this experience. And I don't mean grow in the economic sense or population sense. I mean grow in what it means to be the Homo sapiens, the wise humans that we are supposedly already are. So if we could grow into that wisdom at the hands of this global challenge, then it will have been, I almost hate to say that, but it will be a blessing in disguise, because it will move us into a new relationship with each other, with the earth, maybe even cosmically. So I think there is an opportunity here, and we may very well miss the train, but as long as at least I have some breath, I'd like to propose we take it. I don't think this is exactly, one of those things you come to like, oh, it's a party, let's go. The reckoning is one of the hardest things we will ever have to face. What I do see are signs of people getting it, that this isn't a quick fix. This isn't, necessarily like, oh, let's just put another gadget on the stovepipe and have it be gone. People are getting that this is far bigger, and that the work we have to do is far bigger than anything we've ever done. And I think there are at least a growing number of people, certainly not, this is not mainstream yet, but certainly a bigger number of people getting it, that the work needs to be, going beyond technology and economic sort of fixes, policy fixes. So to me, that gives me hope. It's at least a starting place. I don't think this is going to be, for the faint of heart. So I look mostly, if you will, to leaders who understand the depth of the work that needs to be done. And, I cite them in what I write, I quote them in the talks I give, I echo their words just to have it heard more often that that's the work we need to do. So I guess it's my personal hope, because, I think it's possible to show up for a reckoning, even though it's going to be incredibly difficult to do.